All right, good afternoon. My name is Paul Maloney, and I work on the Global Solutions team with Audit Group. Today I'll be showing you how you can utilize ARGUS Taliance for your complex waterfall modeling. During this webinar, we're going to show you how you can simplify the ongoing maintenance of your waterfall by building your calculations one time and feeding that data from multiple systems to incorporate forecast and historical in one place. We'll also help you to understand your company's entire portfolio of funds through intuitive and editable visual representations of your data. We're going to generate sophisticated waterfall distributions and audit them quickly so you can tell if they've been changed in the future. And we're going to quickly simulate different assumptions such as sales price or sales date to show you the effect that has on your fund and waterfall, as well as how data can be directly imported from ARGUS Enterprise to drive these to your fund level. This demonstration is going to run for approximately 25 minutes. About 20 minutes of that will probably be demonstration with a time for Q&A at the end. ARGUS Taliance fits into the Altus suite of products and is our fund management and visualization tool. It's used for portfolio consolidation and scenario modeling, as well as customizing it with Excel-like functionality, which is something new to the market and has not typically been available to our clients. This tool can be used globally and is going to be used for performance reporting and analysis. ARGUS Taliance is unique in that it can connect with multiple data sources, consolidate investment data with custom investment structure data, as well as analyze these at various levels. We can calculate our waterfalls, distributions, and promotes, as well as evaluate future acquisitions or dispositions and the effect it has on our portfolio, as well as manage the recurring reports that are typically needed with these. At this point, I'm going to switch over to ARGUS Taliance and get into our demonstration and show you how this may be used. ARGUS Taliance is intended to allow our clients to visualize their investments in a fund structure that is dynamic while still having the flexibility needed to get in and manage your model. We realize that many of our clients use ARGUS Enterprise to generate their asset level cash flows before debt or cash flows available for distribution. So with ARGUS Taliance, you still have the ability to capitalize on that data at the asset level and feed that through to their fund and investment structures without having to copy and paste or export into Excel like most currently do today. ARGUS Taliance is different from other solutions, including Excel, because it's the first platform that has flexibility just like Excel, but it has the security that is necessary to ensure that the results are being presented correctly. It is the first unique fund management system that has a bottom-to-top approach that fits the real estate investment industry extremely well. You will realize as we go through this that ARGUS Taliance is real estate specific and is intended to meet the needs of our current clients. We are able to provide this sort of solution for organizations because it can integrate data from many valuable sources such as ARGUS Enterprise, as well as current models such as Excel and your accounting systems to pull in historical data as well. It can represent investment structures in a dynamic way, so there's transparency in all of your calculations that are used, and has the ability to create and modify the calculations to run various scenarios, what ifs, and show graphically through various reports. This diagram is an excellent representation of how the structure is defined, what entities are connected via various relationships. If you look at the diagram on this screen here, you'll notice that this one is comprised of various entities such as waterfalls, loans, investors, and various LLCs. Today we're going to focus on the waterfall piece, but you can see that this is a very robust system that allows you to take all of your asset level data and feed it up through various entities. Historically, most of our clients have used Excel to do these complex calculations because of the nature of uniqueness to each one of these funds or waterfall structures. This is typically due to the fact that there wasn't a software capable of handling all the different nuances that each waterfall may need. ARGUS Taliance is going to give you flexibility similar to that of Excel and lets you control the calculations needed for each hurdle in your waterfall structure to ensure that your values are consistent with your current models. Here we're going to focus on the waterfall for Bay Retail Park asset here. We see this here on the left-hand side. It is shown as an oval-shaped object here, and you guys can control the way this looks for you and use the shapes and colors and formats that are necessary for your specific design. Now, when we launch Bay Office Park's waterfall, we can see various things on the screen. Initially, we see what I would show as the structure of this waterfall, and we call that an attribute set. Right here, the waterfall structure itself, think of that as an output or report or a visualization of your data on your screen. In this example, it shows how this waterfall is comprised, and shows that you're going to have a return of capital as well as 4 other tiers that are all based on IRR hurdles. When we look through this, we can also look at various other things that might be important to you, such as the level returns, which level returns are going to be just that. It's going to be the calculation of how this data looks once it has flowed through your waterfall and shows as an output that an investor may want to see. And in this case, we can see we have a contribution and distribution for both a general partner as well as a limited partner and the different levels achieved during this waterfall. Now, all of this data that we see here has been fed from the underlying asset models. So if we look very quickly back at the diagram, Bay Office Park is actually a derivative of Bay Office Park Retail as well as Bay Office Park Office, and is being fed through the Bay Retail Park LLC. Now, this same waterfall or something very similar or any other promotes can sit anywhere within this diagram and be utilized in an ongoing fashion for new investments or anywhere else that you might need this during your investment. There are various other things that you might want to see as an attribute set. And now these attribute sets are created and controlled by you as the end user and can have the lines and calculations that are necessary for your specific fund or investment. If you look at this, we also have an overview of what the calculations might look like that are feeding into this level return. So we can see to get to that previous screen, here's all the calculations that are taking place. The data that we see in this waterfall can be a combination of various sources of data. Many times, users calculate forecast data in one solution, such as ARGUS Enterprise or Excel, and then other historical data may come in from solutions such as an accounting system or other various Excel models. If we want to roll that data together to do a full cradle-to-grave fund performance or IRR at a certain point in time, that is typically a very manual, arduous process where we're copying and pasting data from various sources together. In this example, we can go back to Bay Retail Park and see the underlying cash flow, and this is the real estate cash flow that's feeding that model. By default, we look at this and it's a set of values. If we turn on the dimensions to show where data resides, though, we can see that a large chunk of this that highlights in green here is actually coming in from our accounting system. All that green data is from the accounting system. By default, this accounting data, as it comes in on a periodic basis, is going to flow through to that waterfall as well, as it takes precedence over the forecast that was previously there. So as we update data on a monthly or periodic basis, our waterfall is going to update as well. So our calculations are going to be driven by those new numbers. Because you can create and utilize the same data for future funds, it can be reused as well. If we wanted to add a new asset to our environment here, or if we want to look at a new waterfall on a prospective deal, we can utilize this same waterfall we've already created one time and apply it to those new locations. And what makes this very powerful is the fact that if we look at this from a calculation perspective, we can drive in and see exactly what's happening here. At this point, we're looking at a bunch of values, but if I double click into any cell, it takes me into the formula audit portion. And when we look at this, we can see that this specific calculation is being derived as cash flow distributions, but it's a sum of things such as cash flow before exit, as well as the acquisition costs on anything that's labeled as a distribution within the system. Now, you can set this formula one time within your model, and it's going to pick up that same data and that same formula anywhere we apply this waterfall in the future. What is very key to note here, though, is that we can also track and see if this has changed. If I step out of the screen and go into the modeling portion, we can see that these calculations are in fact here on the screen as well, and they are linked back to a base model. We see a column here with these little chain links, or the golden links here. If one of those links is broken, we can see that somebody has deviated from what our underlying calculation originally was there. And in fact, we can see that on the cash flow distribution line, that is the case. Somebody has gone here and changed this model since I first created it. There may be reasons you have this. This could be a one-off need for a specific deal, or it could be something as simple as the IRR hurdles. Typically, IRR hurdles may be different for different models or different fund structures that you look at, so you might want to be able to update that each time you use this. And you'll notice here for my preferred return rate, this 0.08 is overriding the underlying fund value. So the ability to get in here and look at the calculations, as well as utilize this screen to audit and ensure that you have not changed the calculation since the last time this run, is a very powerful tool. If in the case a value has been changed or a calculation has been changed, you also have the ability to get into a full audit trail to look and see who did change that, as well as when they changed it. So if I step into the audit section, there's a change tracking piece, and you can do this at periodic times throughout, and you can pick specific date range that it might look at as well. So if I look at this for the last 7 days, I'm going to have access to see what users modified what items and when they did it. So I can actually go back and see who did something and then correct the issue if it was something that shouldn't be changed, or ask if there was a reason this was changed for this one-off or specific deal. So change tracking is very powerful. This is something that we lack in most of the Excel solutions that we see on the market today. So this gives your users the wherewithal to know what's sitting right now, but also know that as they look at this data as they go forward, or any other funds they might pull in here, that they are still getting the same correct calculation they started with. Once your waterfall has been calculated, you start seeing your results on the screen. As we look at future performance or anything else that you might want to see alongside this, one of the things that really is powerful and can differentiate your model from your neighbors is the fact that you might want to do scenario analysis. We all know we have an idea when we purchase an asset and run through a waterfall what our expected hold period is, and we may look at that as a 5-year hold or a 10-year hold or anywhere along that spectrum. But we might also want to be able to come in and simulate, if I sell this 3 years sooner for a different sales price, what does that do? I may want to know if I change just the date that I sell this asset, what does it do for my performance? Various options like that could be calculated within ARGUS Taliance as well. Historically, to do that in Excel, especially utilizing some of the data coming from other sources, can be a very cumbersome and difficult task to accomplish. If we go back to the attribute set selection here, you'll notice some of these do have simulation in the name. So if I come to my waterfall calculation simulation down here, you see it has a line built in that gives me the ability to simulate sales prices or different dates that I might want to do this. So if, in fact, I still want to sell this asset as of November 2016, but I think at that point in time I can get more than $20 million, I can drill in and put in a new value here. So maybe I can get $25 million. And when I validate this, it's going to update the waterfall and the calculations associated with that, as we see right here on the screen. Now, this may be something where I also want to look at a different date or date range within this tool. So I could go in here and completely get rid of this and use a new location. This is also something that can be very powerful if you have multiple assets such as this one, selling one off at different points in time. I only own a 15% share in one of these. I may want to get out of that share at some point. But it's as easy as going to the location you would like to dispose of the asset and entering in that new value. So I can come into my simulation here, and I can put in a new value in July of 2023, for example. Maybe out here I can sell it for $27 million. And my waterfall will recalculate based on this new sales date with the new hurdles and items hit below. And we can see how this flows through. The other key differentiator between this and many of the Excel models we work with today is the interactivity with ARGUS Enterprise itself. Historically, find that clients create their cash flows in Excel or ARGUS Enterprise, and then those are copied and pasted into various tabs that require various VLOOKUPs or other formulaic methods to pull data into one location and modify anything for the future. ARGUS Taliance is directly integrated with ARGUS Enterprise, and if we step back, we can see there's an ARGUS Enterprise import. So one of the keys here is as you update your ARGUS models, you've got the innate ability to pull the data directly into ARGUS Taliance, feeding your cash flow, which is then going to roll up into your waterfalls or any other fund portion that you have. So we can actually take data from ARGUS Enterprise directly in and see how that looks, not only for an individual asset, the waterfall, or anything above that with the fund or any other LLC that might be there as well. So we have tried to streamline this process, store all of your data in one location, and give you the ability to audit and flexibly see what is going on for your current status, as well as any futures that you might have. There was a question around auditing how the tool works and how to audit your formulas. If I step back into any one of these cells, as I mentioned earlier, each one of these is going to be formulaically driven. So if I go back to our level returns, for example, where this is the output of what's been calculated within our waterfall, I can drill into any one of these cells, and it's as simple as just double clicking on this. When we first drill in, we see that this line item I'm looking at is cash flow distributions for Bay Office Retail Park. And we can see right here that this is the sum of the children below that, meaning it's going to sum up anything labeled as a distribution for this specific line item in the entities below. And in this case, that's 2 models. But you can also drill further into this and see where any data is coming from and get down to exactly where those values reside. So we can see that I've got data coming from cash flow before exit of $185,000, as well as any acquisition cost that might have been in that period. And you can do this on any formula within the system. And you can drill all the way down to the very bottom and see where the lowest level of data resides. So that auditing of data is very key here, because we can see what the formula looks like and actually audit back through it. And because it uses things such as cash flow distribution, I would consider this very similar to a named range in Excel. In Excel, you guys classify and dictate this and give it a name that is meaningful to you, and that way you know exactly what that means. It's not like I'm dictating to you what Argus or what your NOI is within Argus. Here you get to pick and choose how NOI is comprised. I've mentioned numerous times that ARGUS Taliance can link directly to Argus Enterprise as one of the main sources of data. It can also link to various other systems, including systems such as Excel. So if you have an Excel model that would be feeding this, we can do that as well. Via data synchronization, you've got the ability to create connections and mappings to various sources, including Excel and CSV files. If you look at my screen here, you will see that this data is coming in from various locations. Some of it is coming in from a database. Others are coming in from CSV files that you see are just stored in folders on my system. So we do give you guys the ability to do this in a very fluid fashion as well. So if you are still going to use Excel for part of your underwriting, which is very common with certain asset classes, you can do that and still feed that data through in an automated fashion. Because this has the ability to create your own formulas, you could calculate information within ARGUS Taliance as opposed to doing it within Excel as well. So this really could be your actual calculation engine as opposed to just a repository for that data. Okay, I'm going to open this up to questions and answers. And we are going to populate a second poll for you guys as well. So please take a moment to respond to that, and I will answer questions as we go along here. So there's a question around how the calculations are happening within the waterfall and how some of this stuff is being looked at. And if we look at this, it's going to be very similar to what you might see in Excel. You still have your standard IRR and XIRR formulas. And I'm sorry, I'll show this screen in just a moment. We're running a poll right now, so my screen is going to be locked out while it's going on, but I can speak to this. You still have the same functionality you would have with your basic IRRs and XIRRs, and it still gives you the ability to go in and pick that on a daily basis as well if necessary. So to that point, we know capital is usually infused on a specific day, not end of the month necessarily or beginning of the month. So it does have the ability to do data such as that as a daily value, so you can get the exact dates that items come into your model. All right, now that that poll is closed out there, I can go into any one of these and look at the IRRs or the equity multiples that we're calculating here. And if we look at this and I go into the modeling side of this, we can see this is an XIRR calculation on that flow of data there. That flow of data is just whatever cash flow line items you happen to be reading this data from. This one also has, if it's NA, to put in a blank value there as opposed to putting in an error message and whatnot. So you'll see it is going to work very similar to what you guys had in Excel. There was another question asking if this data is exported to Excel, does it change the format? It does not. The data is still going to export as it is on the screen. However, formulas are not going to come out. You're going to see values in cells as it was calculated. ARGUS Taliance does offer sensitivity as well. Depending on the type of sensitivity you would like to do, some can happen here. Other times that may still happen in the source system, such as your ARGUS Enterprise model. If you're wanting to get very granular and change things like market rents or inflation rates in certain locations, that's typically better housed within ARGUS Enterprise, but you can do dynamic analysis in this system as well. If I utilize the scenario piece, you do have the ability to come in and run multiple scenarios. And these scenarios could be something as simple as an acquisition or a disposition of an asset at a specific date, or it could be something like changing cap rates or discount rates. So if you want to change cap rates to change what the value is of your building, which is going to obviously affect the returns on that building, you can do that very easy. In this example, I'm going to do this for my entire fund. And we can see down here, this is for the entire Premier World Fund. And the assumption I'm changing is taking whatever the going in cap rate or the current value for that cap rate this year and reducing it by 50 bips in this point. And then I can go to the results side here. And when I run that, it's going to give me the ability to see this in various locations. In this case, I'm looking at the real estate indicator piece. And we see that if they do drop by 50 basis points after the scenario is run, my equity multiple is 3.9% or my IRR is 8.18%. If we go to those same results before, we can see what it was prior. So the equity multiple has changed there at 3.7. Or we can actually look at the numeric difference here. So I can see in this case, the equity multiple drive by 0.2 there. So you can do sensitivity analysis, and it just depends on what you would like to sensitize. So when it comes to summary results at the fund level or looking at things at different levels, we do have the ability to get in and see things at various levels. In this example, if we go back to the diagram, we've been focusing on this Bay Retail Park. I can get into anything above that as well, whether it's the LLC or the fund itself. If I drill into the fund level, there's going to be other things that we are looking at and calculating here, but we can still see some of the same items. So I can see, for example, the real estate cash flows, or I can see the real estate cash flow indicators. This is going to be a summation of everything below it. If I had a promote here at this level, I could feed that data from this cash flow directly into that as well. So you can calculate things at multiple levels. So if we look at those real estate indicators, which what I just showed was we did sensitivity, these are the fund level indicators for the entire fund. If you want to look at some of this data in a more visual fashion, there is some dashboarding you can do as well. This is going to be a more visual representation of the outputs here, but we still see the same real estate indicators, as well as things such as our NOI and cash flow before debt service or after debt service in a visual graph here, as well as how my net present value is broken out by asset type in this case. We do have all the core asset types here, as well as what the exit price and valuation might be based on those values and changes in cap rates. You can have parallel funds or feeder funds within this as well. So if you have holding entities, for example, that data is flowing through, or if this fund is feeding out to another fund, all of this data can be fed via those relationships. In this case, we can see relationships along these lines. And if you look at these lines, a lot of them will say something like 100% here for Victoria Tower REIT. That's what it's being owned by via Premier World Fund. Now, Premier World Fund might have all of this data aggregated up to it, but then also feeding out into a secondary fund as opposed to going to these investors at the top or through a promote. There was a question around the need to recreate the model with the formulas when using this tool, and that is correct. There is some basic setup that is usually worked on by our engagement team as you roll out ARGUS Taliance. That's usually a one-time evolution though, and once that's done, it gives you the ability to utilize, as I've mentioned multiple times, that data on a go-forward basis. It also helps with the handoff of models from one user to another. So a lot of times you might see that somebody made your initial waterfall model and they may have left the firm or taken a different role and are no longer involved in that. And if you're now brought in to pick that up, a lot of times you've got to go back and try to figure out what was done and if anything has changed. And if there is a value still being calculated, you may be happy with that, but it may in fact be the wrong value being calculated. Somebody could have changed something in that model along the way. So by redoing this in ARGUS Taliance one time, you get all of the auditability that comes with the system, as well as the ability to see that it is still tied back to your base model. There is a question on IRR and XIRR. Those can both be derived within the system as well. You can also compound these and do things such as time-weighted returns as well. So that is going to still have that same type of flexibility. The index module at the bottom left-hand of the screen it's just a model. If you look at all these things along the left-hand side, these are various things that might reside in the screen here. So we see things like the fund. These are all variations of funds or holding entities or different indexes that I might be utilizing data from. So these are all models that have been created within the system that can then be utilized to show in a diagram such what we have on the screen, or used just for calculation purposes throughout the diagrams that are hiding behind this. If we go back to the fund level here, as I mentioned earlier, we can see where data resides or where data has come from. So if we go back to something such as a real estate cash flow, and we look at the aggregate cash flow here, we can drill into this just like we did those formulas anywhere else and see exactly where data is coming from. So if we look at this net rental income, for example, or theoretical income, a lot of this data is being fed obviously from other levels. And if you drill into this, just as I showed earlier, going through the formulas here, once you drill down far enough, it will show you right here that that data for theoretical income at the fund level is coming from these 5 different SPVs, which if we drill into the SPVs, we'll see they are coming from those various models that I was showing, such as Bay Retail Park LLC here. So you can drill in and see exactly where that data is coming from at any point in time. Okay, we are right at the top of the hour. I thank you for your time today. As you have seen through the Q&A section here, there are various other things that ARGUS Taliance can help you accomplish outside of just those basic waterfalls. If you have further inquiries or questions, feel free to reach out to your Altus account manager, and they will be happy to set up a deeper dive demonstration for you with myself or one of my colleagues.